Hi everyone, welcome to Facebook Live Wednesday lunchtime or whatever we call it. Today we're going to be talking about age discrimination. So let me just wait for people to get on. Usually we have, about 10 or so people on, which is a nice little small group. So let me start by introducing myself. I'm Julie Bauke. You may have heard me on the Scott Sloan Show every Wednesday morning at 10:35. I like to talk about career stuff, specifically about you getting what you want in your career. The thing about getting what you want in your career is that definition changes. And hold on for a second. Let's see. Sure, it working? Sorry, this is Facebook keeps changing up how to do this. We had to download a different version of Chrome, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so your definition of the right career, as I say every week, is different because you are different than you were 5 years ago and you're different from everybody else around you. Some of the ways that we can connect are on LinkedIn, here on Facebook. You can listen to me on the Scott Sloan Show, and you can also listen to my podcast, The Evolved Career, where I interview people who have had interesting careers, people who've made changes in their careers because of things that have happened in their lives, or maybe an aha they had, or something they started caring about that they didn't care about before. And so because we as humans evolve, our careers evolve. So there's all kinds of ways to get information from me. You can also go to thebaukegroup.com and sign up for our about twice monthly notes and bits of information. So there's lots of ways to get good, free content about your career. I'm about you having what you want in your career. We talked about age today on WLW. And it's funny, isn't it? If you are over a certain age, I'm sure like me, you remember back being in early in your career, people would say, "Oh, you're so young. Oh my gosh, you're just a baby." And then one day they quit saying that, didn't they? You're like, "I'm still young." Like we still think of ourselves sometimes as really young, but we're, it just kind of creeps up on us. I can't tell you how horrible it is to sit across the desk from somebody, especially somebody who's in their 50s, who is really unhappy at work and never really understood that they could be happy at work. And there's some generational stuff in that, certainly. I think if you're a boomer, over 50 especially, or you were at least touched by the generation or the thought that it's just work, you're not supposed to enjoy it. And I think that is so dangerous. Our parents, and for a lot of people, even in their 40s, their parents were of the generation that you went and you stayed and you never quit. You hang on as long as you can. You be loyal to your company. For a million reasons that doesn't work. And why that matters for the topic of ageism is that if you are of a certain generation, you look at work differently than those who are younger than you do or younger than me do. They're like, "Yeah, why would I stay in a job I hate?" Where for us, it's like, man, it's a job. I should just be glad to have a job. And we do all this head stuff. So what happens is, if we have any type of that mentality, then we're going to really struggle with the thought that our employer could let us go. Because from our end, we're thinking, or hold our age against us. So from our end, we're thinking, well, I'm just going to stay on as long as I can and hope that, I can make it until the day I can retire. Sort of like dragging yourself across the finish line, which is never a good idea. So we get this thing in our head that says, well, I've been loyal, so they're supposed to keep me. Well, we're in a different place now, and employers, rightfully so, say, if you're doing a good job, if you are still relevant, if you're keeping yourself up to date, et cetera, you have a greater chance of staying here as long as you choose to, as long as it still works for you. But if you've done anything that resembles retiring on the job or just sort of slacking off, working for the weekend, the older you are, probably the more money you're making, and an organization may look at you and say, well, we don't really need this person around anymore. Now, if you're kind of retired on the job, frankly, anybody in any age group is at risk, because you're looking at this saying, well, I'm just, I'm on Facebook all day goofing around with my friends, and I get kind of a mediocre performance appraisal, and it's good enough. My boss likes me, we're neighbors, we hang out, I'm good. But it just doesn't work that way. And if you could get yourself in a situation where you're not being, what you're doing is not good enough anymore. And if you're 30 and that happens to you, you have a 30+ year runway to get your act together and get back in action. But if you're not, if you're 55 and you're trying to make it another 5 years and you decided to retire on the job, it's not going to work, probably. So the first thing I would have you do when it comes to age discrimination is look at yourself really, really honestly. There are certain things we can control and certain things we can't. The things we can control are, how do we approach work? Are we still working at 100% capacity? Or be honest with yourself here. Or have we gone back down to 80-85%? And don't think, if that's you, if you recognize a little bit of yourself in there, don't think that's going unnoticed. So take a good hard look at yourself. What's your effort? Number 2 way to look at yourself. Have you kept your skills and your abilities up to date? If you are in, let's say you're in a business that's very connected to laws and legislations, and you've got to really stay up on top of what's going on from a compliance standpoint. Are you up to date? And I know sometimes it feels like our heads are full, but you have to stay up to date. Because if you're making decent money, you've been there a long time, and you're not staying up to date, it really is a no-brainer to replace you. I hate to say it. So are you staying up to date in your field, in your profession, but also technology-wise? How have you adapted to this work-from-home world? How have you adapted? Maybe not so well. Are you giving it your all? We're all trying to learn things. I was on a call yesterday. I'm so used to Zoom by now and kind of getting used to Facebook Live, even though they keep changing the rules, that somebody wanted to get on WebEx. And there was some issue with my camera on WebEx. And I was like so frustrated. And so sometimes it just, luckily my 25-year-old son is here right now for the week. And so I was actually able to use his computer. So, are you able to navigate a work from home situation? Are you able to navigate the technology needed? Or do you just say, I don't get it, I give up? And believe me, I feel like saying that sometimes, but I try to stop myself. By the way, if you have questions, put them in the comment bar and I'll get to them. So what are you doing? So there's are you working hard? Have you kept your professional knowledge up to date? And then how's your technology? How are your technology skills? You've got to stay on top of those. If you're over a certain age, it's even more important, because people look at you and they assume that you're not as good at it as someone half your age. And it's probably true in many cases, but not all. But you at least have to be able to keep up. All right, next, what else can you control? You can control how you look. Yes, you can. You can control your attire. As I say, does your outfit, your work or your interview outfit, look like it hasn't been updated since the Reagan administration? That's a problem. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, it shouldn't matter. What I look like shouldn't matter. How I present shouldn't matter. It's the quality of my work. The problem is, and that's true, because if you look great and you do really bad work, you're not going to last either. But it's that whole first impression bias. And there's a lot of research done on first impression bias. How do people think when they meet you? What impression do you give off? I have a friend who does image consulting, and she has all these pictures of like before and after people. And she shows this one picture of this guy, probably in his 50s, whose pants are too long, his jacket doesn't fit, and he just looks schlubby. And then she's got a second picture of him where his outfit fits him and is up to date. And we tell the people in the class, that first guy's a doctor. Would you ever believe that guy was a doctor? Would you trust that guy? I'm like, no. Sort of like your doctor walks into the room and he's got like ick all over his coat, or he's wearing his lunch down the middle. Ew. So you have to think about, how are you coming across? And I know we've all gotten like really comfortable with our sweatpants, and yeah, I've got them on right now and no shoes. But we've got this whole sort of first impression stuff we have to think about. Think about when you see people, what do you think? And we do it. It's not being judgmental, it's just what it is. And frankly, there have been a lot of studies done on this about how quickly people make that first impression. And you don't know. You might be like really, you might be out and about in some dirty sweatpants. And let's say I was out and about in some dirty sweatpants, which I do go out and about in sweatpants, but not dirty ones. And I had just a ripped up t-shirt on. And people are like, aren't you truly Bauke? I see you on Fox 19. I'd be embarrassed, frankly, that I look like that. So you want to really think about how you're coming across to people that you get in contact with. And here's the beauty of it. It doesn't have to be expensive. It's just don't pick up your clothes off a pile off the floor. And also hair. Yeah, I know we haven't had haircuts. Your hair, your glasses, everything that you do can give off an old energy or an up-to-date energy. And I'm not even going to say a young energy. I'm just going to say an up-to-date energy. And what that means is, do you look like you retired 10 years ago? So if you're over a certain age, I want you to think about when you've gone to your class reunions, and there are people in your class reunion who are like, please tell me I don't look like that. They look like they're 20 years older. And again, it's really about how up-to-date are you and your ideas. So if you meet somebody and let's say you're looking for a job, and you come in and any of these things I've just said that are entirely in your control, you're not up to date on your profession or technology. If your clothes are out of date or don't fit, I'm not asking you to be a fashion plate here, or your hairstyle is very out of date, any of those things, here's what's going to happen, people. And you go ahead and kick and fuss and moan about how it's not right, because whether it's right or not doesn't matter, because it is. We have to deal with what is. They're going to look at you and maybe say, maybe this person could do this job, but they don't look like they've kept up. Maybe even your professional and technical skills are up to date, but you walk in the door and you're walking slow and you're huffing and puffing and you're carrying 50, 60 extra pounds. People will make judgments about you that maybe also your technology and professional skills aren't up to date, or you don't have the energy they need. So there's certain things we can and can't control. So that's a list. So your personal appearance, and again, this does not have anything to do with going out and spending money. Go to TJ Maxx. It's not that hard. And then what's your professional knowledge, if you kept that up to date, and what's your technology skills. And one thing you can also do, you've met people your own age, I know you have, who have a different energy. And anything you can do, even if you're in the interview, people say, well, what do you, let's say you go on an interview and you're 55 years old, and you go on an interview, and, well, how did you spend your time during COVID? How did you survive? Well, I took up running, or I was spending a lot of time in the garden, or I spent a lot of time out walking. I did a lot more yoga. So when you get a chance to talk about your energy, the amount of energy you're expending, that's also a good sign that you are not looking to sit around. So people are looking for energy. Now there's assumptions, of course, that you're going to cost more for the health insurance. You're going to take up more in health insurance. Depending on the size of the company, that really doesn't matter in a lot of cases because it's a group plan. But will you miss more days? There's all kinds of assumptions people make. One of the other ones that has nothing to do with age is that if you're a single mother, you'll miss a lot of time. That's not true, necessarily. Single mothers can be some of the hardest working people you'll ever hire. But what if you've got a 25-year-old single guy who likes to party all the weekends, and then on Monday he's not worth much? So be really, really careful if you're in that position. Don't generalize. But if you're on the side of the table where you're looking for a job, you have to know that people are generalizing about you. Keep skills up to date. Keep your personal appearance up to date. Keep your professional presence up to date. Keep your LinkedIn profile up to date. I know you're probably tired of hearing me say this, but if you don't have a LinkedIn profile and you're in any sort of professional position, shame on you. You must. And it has to be up to date, and make sure it's got a really nice professional headshot of you. I actually read something in the Wall Street Journal which just made me laugh because I'm experiencing this. You know, if you listen to me on Sloaney will tell you as many times as you get to that I'm 60. And so there was this Wall Street Journal article about people who are worried about this. Yeah, this. Yes, the falling neck. And there's all kinds of stuff. There's one woman who like puts her hand behind her head to hold her neck up. You know what? It's kind of a part of life. It happens. And there's like these filters and the angle. What are you supposed to sit at your angle at and all this? And I actually, if you were on a couple weeks ago, when I did this on my phone because we couldn't get the camera to work, I deleted that entire video because I was like, my whole face is falling. So what can you do? And there's only certain things I can do about that. In that case, I deleted the video. But what are the things you can do? And so, yeah, we're all there. We're all vain. We're all looking at the way we come across. And what happens a lot of times is people are very quick to say, well, it's because I'm a woman. It's because I'm over 50. They just don't want anybody who's over a certain age. That may be true, but in a lot of cases, that's not it. It's just you're not presenting yourself the right way. So for instance, we talk about like putting a date on dates on resumes and LinkedIn profiles. Let's talk about that. So, of course, one of the things you should never, never, never do is put the date you graduated from high school. Now, there's a lot of people doing math. Let's say, so I graduated from high school in 1978. So I graduated from college in 1982. So many, if not most people go straight to college from high school. So you could probably do the math and figure out how old I am. So if you are, let's say you got an MBA in 1982. That's different from an MBA in 2018. The world has changed about 100 times. If you are 50 some years old and you got your MBA in the last couple years or a master's degree or frankly even a bachelor's degree, I'd put that on there. I think that's really impressive. That's part of your story. So definitely not dates for high school. And then there's also a school of thought that says on your resume, only go back 10 years. I also do not agree with that. So what you want to do, you want to make sure, but what you don't want to do, let's say you're 60 like I am, and your first job out of college was a sales rep in 1982. I don't know that I would put sales rep, Coca-Cola Company, 1982. What I might do, here's another alternative to, let me just say, we're not trying to hide our age. What we're trying to do is take the emphasis off. So what you might want to do is think about your resume like this, okay? The most relevant information is probably the last 10 to 15 years. So you want to put more emphasis and more detail on your last 10 to 15 years. Then as you go back in your resume with your older jobs, you want to put less information because it's less relevant. Also, if there's something you did and you did it up here in one of your more recent jobs, don't put it, and you also did it in your older job, don't put it in the older job because you did it more recently. And there is one exception to this. Let's say that you're looking for a career in real estate, but you've been out of real estate for 20 years, but your first 10 years were in real estate. I think it's really important to put that on there because you want to make sure that people understand where that interest is coming from. So a strategy that we use with our clients of a certain age sometimes with their resumes is most important information. As you get down here, you create a section called early career. Then you just put the few jobs in your early, let's say the first 10 years of your career, or depending on, it's hard to know without knowing each person on this call, but your last piece is early career. So I might show, like in my case, my first jobs out of college were in human resources. Back then it was called personnel. So I would put my first, if I was redoing my resume, and by the way, I hate to do my resume as much as you hate to do yours, I would put those first few personnel jobs on there because it shows how I got my start, but the information's not relevant, and I would not put dates on those necessarily. That's one way. It's hard to know without knowing your particular situation because each person, this is why I am not a fan of using any old resume. I'm just a professional resume service, meaning somebody who's not helping you with your whole desire in terms of what you want to do. because a resume is a marketing document that's a part of your communication strategy. The smallest programs we do are communication strategy programs. And that's resume, LinkedIn profile, and answers to key questions. And so what the right resume looks like, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, then you don't know what you should put on your resume. So I have a new client who just went out and spent a lot of money to get somebody to write a resume for, and I looked at it and I was like, no. Given what you want to do, we have to redo this. So you've wasted your time and your money on this resume because it's not a reflection of what you want to do. So when you think about age, you want to think about, what am I trying to do? What's my goal? And then how do I tell that story in this document? So that's a way to get around the age questions. So any questions, please put them to the left. All right, so resume, and then, yes, employers are not supposed to ask you when you graduated from high school or anything like that. Will they do it? They might. It's really stupid, but you'll find, if you've been in the interviewing process for very long, that there's not a lot of good knowledge out there when it comes to hiring people. And so people will, in a lot of cases, they will try to figure out how old you are. I'm not sure why. I don't think it matters. But what's really relevant is, what is your experience and how quickly can you come in and get up to speed? Now, one way that age is really, really helpful is if an organization has a lot of young professionals, they want some help mentoring. There are some pluses to being of a certain age. And again, we're greatly generalizing. But a lot of times, people of a certain age, they actually they're more reliable. They're going to stick around longer. They're not looking to jump after a year or two, which some younger folks might be. So you might want to talk about times when you took on a leadership or mentoring role. So you want to really figure out who you are and what do you bring to the table. If you are somebody who works really hard and does nothing but produce great results, and you've kept up to speed, and your technical skills, and your professional appearance, and your professional knowledge, and you've got good references to back all this up, and you have good energy in the interview, if you're not getting a job, it's probably not age discrimination. They probably just went with somebody else. On the other hand, if you do show up looking older than you are, you aren't up to date, you haven't stayed relevant, and you talk about things like, one guy said to me, I don't believe in LinkedIn, or I don't know how to do that. I'm imagining you'll be teaching me that, right? You're not going to get hired. It's up to you to stay relevant. It's up to you to stay up to date. And like I've said a million times, this doesn't cost a lot. If your glasses or your hair have not been updated, or your wardrobe hasn't been updated, then you do risk the age discrimination. And as we said on Slowing this morning, there are some industries where, like marketing firms a lot of times will tend toward younger people because they know they're probably really adept at social media and it's all native to them, where those of us who are older, it's not. And also, if you have 30 years in IT, it's probably not all relevant. So what of your experience in IT is most relevant? That's what you want to figure out, how to market that. So that's where we are today. We have no comments, no questions. No comments, no questions. It's almost 12:30, it's 12:25. Any comments or questions? Yeah, okay, there's one. I just got one on my text. What can you do? How do you know if you're being discriminated against? Let's say you're at work. There's been a layoff. And you look around and you wonder, is age discrimination a part of this? That is, it might be. You want to take a look at all the things that have been said to you, all the things that have been put in writing. If 60% of the people being laid off are over 40 and only 10% of the people under 40 are, you want to look at that. Proving it is very, very hard. So Kathy has a question. All right, Kathy, Catherine, you may have just logged on, but I talked about this. I've been advised to only list the past 15 years experience on your resume. Unfortunately, Kathy, you're getting bad advice. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. if you're trying to hide your age, don't, because people are going to find out anyway. There's a lot of really bad advice out there, unfortunately. What you want to do, Kathy, is put your most relevant experience first and then less detail in your oldest experience. So yes, no. Here's the problem, people. Any sort of blanket advice, like resume should only be one page, only do your last 10 to 15 years, is really suspect, because you're not getting advice from people who truly understand what you're trying to accomplish. How you should approach your message, your resume, your LinkedIn profile, all has to do with what you're trying to accomplish. Where are you trying to go? Think about it this way. A resume is not just a brain dump onto a page as to what you're looking for. As to everything you are and everything you've ever done. Oh, I had that job in a grocery store for 3 months. I got to put it on there. No, a resume is a marketing document. What on your background do you need to show to qualify you for what you're looking to do? That's the point of our process is think, plan, execute. And part of think and plan is putting together a relevant communication strategy that's tied to your outcome. So how should your resume be written? What should your LinkedIn profile focus on? How should you answer key questions? And the key questions are, why did you leave your last job? Tell me about yourself. And what do you want to do next? Those are the 3 key questions. In my book, Stop Peeing on Your Shoes, Avoiding the 7 Mistakes That Screw Up Your Job Search, Chapter 1 is called Jumping into the Fire Without Your Fireproof Undies. And that's all about how to answer those first 3 questions. You are not ready to do a job search unless you can answer those questions. If you can't answer those questions, you need to go back and start from the beginning. My book it's you can get it on Kindle, you can get it on Amazon. It's like $14.95, and it'll walk you through all this stuff, all the steps of a job search. And of course, if you want to consider coaching or help with your communication strategy, we do that as well. Go to thebaukegroup.com. So I will see you back here next week at noon to talk more about your career. And feel free to reach out to me via the Bauke Group Facebook page or connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have a topic you'd like me to cover, I'm happy to do that. All right, everybody, take care and have a wonderful day. The sun's out here. I hope it is where you are as well.